Welcome back to Telltale Books. Our video this time is a continuation of a series we started a while ago. Our first year in September, after we had done about 8 months of videos, we did a review of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Her first time reading it, I read it when I was a kid, and have read it a number of times.
Really enjoyed it.
And then, of course, in December of last year, we went on to do 2010, following up. And she wanted to dive right in and continue. So
I just kept going.
2063.
I think it's interesting. Your book is
thinner
than mine.
I used to be a member of the Science Fiction Book Club.
Oh, gotcha.
And I got my copy through that.
Okay.
So their books are typically different.
Yeah.
They're smaller and usually not as well made.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
But they are.
Cheaper materials.
Oh.
But I've kept mine in pristine condition. So,
and mine
except
we
for
found.
A little rub on the cover.
You got it for me at a thrift store.
Yeah, we thought we found that. I forget which one we were in when I saw that, and I said, "Oh, you got to get that and read it." And it wasn't very expensive, so
no, it was good.
And that is, not a science fiction book club. That's an original edition.
Yes.
Nice, and it's in pretty nice shape.
It's a nice Del Rey.
Little yellowed, but otherwise.
Yeah, I'm actually very pleased with it, and I felt like
that cover's in perfect shape.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Very happy with how it looks. So yeah, that was a good find. I love the cover art of this one. Mm-hmm. This is
It's Michael Whelan painting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw him post it on his Instagram not too long ago, so I was like, I know what that is.
Yeah. He did 2010, and he did this one, and I think he did a reprint of 2001, but he didn't do 3001.
Okay. But yeah, which is going to be the next one we want to read, because I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I want to get to that soon.
Absolutely.
We got a couple others ahead of it, but I think we can get to it this spring, maybe.
Yeah. So, of course, this is the first book in the whole thing that doesn't have a movie attached to it.
Yeah.
Someone do it,
They stopped making movies after 2010.
We have the technology now that you could
2010 certainly made a lot of money.
Things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this book didn't come out till 1987. And, of course, the whole series wasn't supposed to be a series.
No, it was supposed to be a standalone with 2001.
It was supposed to be a movie, and Clarke wrote a novelization of the movie, basically.
And then he just kept going.
And, well, people in the late 70s, early 80s, people like Clarke and Asimov and Heinlein, they were being pushed really hard to write continuations of their popular books, popular series. Isaac Asimov just got tons and tons of mail asking him to continue Foundation, so he finally gave into that and wrote Foundation's Edge. And Arthur Clarke, of course, was being pushed to provide answers to all the questions people had about 2001. The questions were answered in 2001, but not in a way that the average person can figure out. It was very, very heavily encoded, and reading the book helps a lot, but there's still a lot to it that you're left wondering. You're left to your own imagination.
Yes.
So people were pushing at Clarke to write 2010, and he finally did.
Yes.
Because, of course, with that many people, the publishers are going, we can make a fortune. And
absolutely.
So he wrote it, and they did. So then he had ideas based on advances in astronomy.
Yes.
About the solar system.
I really like
that. He incorporated into 2010, and then he incorporated more of it into 2061.
Yes.
And that's really what this book focuses on, is what's happening on Europa after 2010.
Yes.
They go back. Mankind has gone out into the solar system a little bit more, and they establish a base on Ganymede, I believe, or is it Callisto?
Nope, it was Ganymede.
Okay, and so there's a human-staffed station on Ganymede where they're basically watching developments on Europa, and so they're seeing things happening there that they can't see much because it's cloud covered, but they're seeing just enough and telling enough by using radar and infrared imagery that there's something going on. They're very, very curious about it.
But of course they had the warning that said, don't mess with Europa from Dave.
So they mostly stay out of it, but they're going to do a mission where they kind of go in, skim the atmosphere.
And they're going to do some geological stuff that they wanted to try and see, like what the surface is doing, because they see this random mountain that just kind of shows up, and it's like a clear, giant, crystallized looking thing. So one scientist in particular is part of a mission that happens to be part of a luxury line, where they happen to piggyback on the maiden voyage of these luxury liners for space travel that are being test run. It's very interesting how that all goes down.
Yeah, and well, Heywood Floyd is the primary character, and his son is on the ship going out to Europa.
Grandson, not his
grandson.
His grandson. His son has passed away by this point.
Yeah, and Floyd is over 100 years old, but feels like
abnormally
70.
Long life happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's on a spaceship. His was a luxury liner. They were
both. Yeah, they were both luxury liners, and these were the two maiden voyages. One was going to head out over to Ganymede to do a round there, and this one was the one that he's on is the luxury liner that was going to land on Halley's Comet, which had another team of scientists that were going to piggyback on that expedition. Yeah. And kind of basically space tourism was starting.
So Heywood Floyd is at this comet. They land on this comet, which it's a really cool part of the book, but it's only for astronomy geeks.
Yeah, really. It doesn't contribute to the story a ton.
Not really. It just gets Heywood Floyd out there on a spaceship in a situation where they have fuel, where they can tap the comet for fuel and be able to get to Jupiter faster than anybody else. But the descriptions of the comet are just so cool.
It's really cool.
It's worth it, even though story-wise doesn't really add to development. It's there for a little
character development, but the characters don't play a huge part.
It's mostly a Gashwal astronomy thing that people like me really get into. But
and it's also kind of reinforcing the idea too that there are elitists who are going to be the ones who can afford space travel as tourism, which politically you see,
which is already going on.
Yeah, which is happening now. But it's also interesting to see the political predictions from the last 3 books coming into this particular thing. I had actually noticed that in 2010 too, where it's starting to be like, you just noticed that the wealthy have this sort of elitism that's starting, and it's moving into space travel.
Interestingly, I came across a quote, I think it was by Robert Heinlein back in the 40s or 50s, stating that governments would have to take us into space because corporations couldn't afford it. Now we're in the opposite situation. The government can't afford to keep going with it, and it's corporations that are taking us into space finally.
Yeah, so it's the opposite
totally
idea.
The opposite thing. But the danger of that, of course, is that the billionaires that already own everything in the world are going to own that too, and the rest of us are going to be excluded.
Yeah, and there's going to be conflict of science versus commerce.
Exactly. It's all going to be just another capitalist profit motive thing, and we really need to put an end to that because it's leading us down the wrong path.
Yeah.
So anyway, off soapbox. Back to the book. Floyd is at the comet. His grandson is on the ship out to Europa, and some people are on this ship that are not good people, and they crash the ship into Europa.
And then kill themselves.
Yeah.
Which, that part of the story felt like a hole for me. I don't know why they're dead. Like, why did they kill themselves? What was the point of this? There's some political explanation-ish stuff in there, but that still didn't make sense to me. So that felt like a weaker point in the book.
It really seemed like just a way to get them down onto Europa.
Basically, it felt that part felt a little weak. It was a cool, like, intense moment, but it was very convoluted. There really was no reason for it. I think like a technical issue would have been much more appropriate in that part. That's the only criticism I had of this book, though. Otherwise, it was great.
Right.
Like, technical issue would have been much more appropriate.
Yeah. So then they're down on Europa, and they get to fly
stranded.
around and check it out.
Yeah,
Even
they're
though
stranded
not
and they
supposed
have
to
like
be.
a little land pod or whatever that they're supposed to do, and they're checking it out and discover a whole bunch of cool new stuff. And
Yeah.
then they have to get rescued by the
Clarke
other.
basically takes us on this exploration of what's going on Europa, because everything with Jupiter is accelerated. Not taking the normal span of years to develop a star, develop a world, and develop life, and that's probably the doing of whoever is behind the monoliths.
Yeah.
And they have accelerated things on Europa. So they're discovering all kinds of just all really cool things on there, and I won't go into that because it's too cool to spoil it in the video.
Definitely a really interesting world, really interesting population, great creatures. Loved that. Definitely very imaginative. Again, you see the reinforcement of this combination of science and the metaphysical portrayed again in a much more complex way than we've seen previously in other novels from this series, which I thought was really interesting. How there's like, yeah, it's real good. I don't want to spoil it because it's really interesting.
But now, without spoiling it, I want to talk a little bit about this cover art. Beautiful cover art. I love Michael Whelan's work. I've always have.
Yes.
But the only part that's really relevant is down here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else, the multiple monoliths don't come into the story. Hal doesn't come into the story. Dave Bowman doesn't show up. Or he does.
They're
a little
alluded
bit.
to.
Yeah, they're
alluded
talked
to.
about, but they aren't really featured in the story. And
Towards the end. But
and
that's
you don't
it.
really learn more about the monoliths or who's behind them. It doesn't really take you farther than 2010 or 2001 did. But it, and so I my feelings about this book are that this feels a lot like Clarke's 1950s stories, like Prelude to Space or Earthlight, where he just has people going out into the solar system and discovering what's out there and discovering how, what kind of science and technology they need to successfly go out there and start building bases and living and working out in space. So the travelogue of the solar system, going to Halley's Comet, going to the new Europa, and seeing the wonders of the solar system is really the whole point of the book.
Yes.
Which is classic Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes.
But it doesn't fit with the really big metaphysical issues that are brought up in 2001.
Yeah.
It just seems like an anecdote along the way.
And so one of the things I thought was interesting too is there's an entire I don't know if your book has this or not, the 3001, where they kind of start alluding to the next phase of what all of this science is kind of leading towards.
Yeah.
And that's why I really want to read 3001, because I'm hoping that those things are answered and they start talking about them a little more, because it sounds like from that last bit there that it definitely gets hashed out a lot more. So I'm hoping that's answered in 3001. But yes, I agree with you. This doesn't really answer a lot of the questions, nor does it dwell on the metaphysical aspect that it's been posing throughout the entire series thus far.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not even really a huge part of it.
No, it kind of has middle book syndrome where it's it's carrying the story along, but it's not really answering anything or concluding anything.
Yes.
But
Still
like I
great.
say, if this could somehow be removed from the 2001 series universe and just be a standalone story about people out in the solar system discovering Europa, and if it were written earlier than 1987, it would be a science fiction classic. Like I say, it would be classic Arthur Clarke.
Yeah, it was delightful, extremely entertaining, definitely a must read if you liked 2001 and if you liked what was the other 2010?
2010.
Yeah, words are hard. Numbers, can't remember. Bleh. Yeah, if you like 2010, definitely a nice contribution, I think. Maybe not super hugely relevant, but again, we haven't read 3001 to know yet.
True.
So I wouldn't exclude it from the series at all, but yes, it could be a great standalone.
But 2001 was this book that started with the dawn of man and goes all the way forward to revealing this vast alien intelligence and this vast technology way beyond us, and propelling Dave Bowman into the final stage of human evolution, going out to the stars, becoming the star child. And then you have this book that's just about people tooling around the solar system, discovering
and some evolutionary process on Europa.
Yeah. You know, 2001 was this big idea, and even 2010 basically kind of just rehashed those ideas with some new discoveries about Jupiter that we had, and some interesting speculations, you know, of turning Jupiter into a whole star, but served more to build character and simplify the story to where more people could understand what was going on. It wasn't so artsy as 2001 was.
Yes.
So then this one, it's just like Clarke went back to his roots and, you know, rewrote.
Made a fun adventure. He made a
Earthlight.
fun adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by no means am I putting the book down. Like I say, if it wasn't part of the 2001 universe, it would still be a major Arthur Clarke book.
It is a fun read. And there's a lot of, like, I like some of the social dynamic that's described, too.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little more complexly expressed, which is interesting because in 2010, you already had the tension of, like, Russia versus United States, kind of Cold War stuff going on there, and them having to kind of come together and do this teamwork thing. These guys are basically all from the same countries, same social economic status, same everything, and the dynamic socially is so different. It's actually more complex than Russia versus America. This is like basically like people of the same, a lot of the same background, a lot of the same upper echelon, a lot of that kind of dynamic, and it's far more complex.
Yeah. Though when we made our 2010 video, I was saying how 2010 was relevant to the Cold War atmosphere in 1981, and that it's, you know, a little hard to understand that today because we didn't have that anymore. And now
it's a little more,
shooting this video on, what is this, March 5th? March 6th, 2022, and Putin has invaded
Ukraine.
The Ukraine. It looks like we're right back where we were when 2010 was written, and all those issues are now relevant again.
Yep. So
we never learn.
No, we don't. Humanity tends to repeat its same mistakes over and over.
Yeah, and over. Which was, you know, part of the point of 2001 and 2010 was that we need to learn. We need to grow beyond that. You know, it's kind of like, at the end of Wells' Things to Come, the statement, all the universe or nothingness, which is it going to be? And that's kind of what faced us at the end of 2001 with the Star Child looking at nuclear missiles being launched and putting a stop to them. Are we going to go on and evolve towards whatever state we will evolve towards?
Yeah.
Or are we going to just wipe ourselves out with these stupid, petty territorial wars that, you know, just are not even relevant to the way the world is built today?
That's what I think is so interesting about this, too. It's starting to lead towards there's going to be a new world order. And I kind of am interested to see, and it's alluded to in the last chapter as well, so I'm interested to see, like, how all this science contributes to that, if that is actually the case.
Yeah.
So where the borders start to break down a little bit more, and we kind of have to unify as an entire world and not just a bunch of countries on a floating rock. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out.
Yeah. Well, that's what angers me about what's going on today is all this intelligence from various authors and scientists and futurists and politicians about the fact that that we need to establish peace in order to move into the future. And we need to start acting a little more rationally and less territorially, less nationalistically, and come together as mankind, which really is what Christ preached.
Yeah, when you think about it.
2,000 years later,
Here
we
we
still
are.
have a lot of very religious people running around saying, oh, the New World Order stuff, it's going to destroy the world. No, it's the concept of bringing us together in peace, which is what Christianity is all about, guys.
Yeah.
Whether you follow the church or read the Bible or not, that's what Christ was preaching.
Absolutely.
Live together.
And it's
in
not
peace.
even just like, it's not even Christianity, it's Buddhism. There's aspects of Islam that are very focused on this. This is something that we can still have these individual ideals, but there's a lot of common ground, and we don't focus on the common ground. We focus on the individual. And we start becoming reactionary instead of actually living these beliefs and trying to embrace individuality while also recognizing that we are all part of the same human species and we need to start contributing to the greater good of mankind.
Yeah.
And it's so, I think it gets really, we hyper focus on these differences so much because there is this mentality of kill it because it's different. And that's, if we are intelligent beings, we don't have to believe like, react like animals do.
Yeah.
Like we have this sense of emotion and things that science, I'm reading a book right now that challenges that, but science does not believe that animals have emotions, they have instinct. So why are we reacting on instinct when we clearly understand that we have emotions and we need to start helping and investing in our fellow man?
Yeah.
Seems logical, right?
And
but easier said than done.
Pretty much every science fiction writer since Wells, including Clarke, has believed in that we need to come together and live in peace as one and stop the nationalities, stop the territorialism, stop this simple, that guy over there
And that was what
different from us, so we need to bomb them.
Yeah, that was what America was supposed to be. It was supposed to be this melting pot of everybody just coming together no matter what your background was and being able to coexist. And even that has been chaos.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is definitely a good read. Definitely feel like that does encroach on that subject and watching that process happen. I'm really interested in seeing that, and I like that. I like the concept, and I like the breaking down of borders that it's starting to infer.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to read the 3001 for that reason. But yeah, back to the book and off the soapbox again, since we love to do that. This was definitely worth the read.
Yeah.
Really hard to put down for me. Just the science behind it is so interesting, and I'm not a scientific mind, but it explains things so well. And does so well of giving you the adventure and the story as well as the science. And I really appreciated it for that.
And it's not a long book. What is
Nope.
it, like 200-something pages?
Yeah, not
and
rich. Yeah.
Very short chapters.
Like
so
just shy of
it's
300
easy
pages.
to read
Yes.
and goes fast.
Yeah. It's kind of like reading a Dan Brown book. If you've ever read a Dan Brown book, his chapters are real short, like 10 pages or less. That's what this is too. And it's all very compelling information. It's all very compelling story. Very compelling characters.
Yeah.
Very well done. So
go get it.
yeah, read it.
Read it. And somebody make a movie. That and 3001. We need to finish the story.
Give me the movie. I need it. I mean, Dune's a movie. Come on. Give it to me. All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.